I'm CJ Ferry.
And I'm Bob Chip Camara. Good day.
And this is going to be a very interesting show for you today. Number one, it's episode number 13. Can you believe it's been 13 weeks already?
Yeah, tomorrow's Friday the 13th.
So it's going to be interesting. But we attended a school committee meeting at the Henry Lord this week. And let me tell you something, that auditorium was full. Wall-to-wall people. Actually, wall-to-wall parents and teachers who were very upset. And it was kind of interesting to see. And we had a former Fall River school teacher who took the lead, who answered the needs of her former students and parents who were contacting her, took the matter to Facebook, and then got them all to show up at this school committee meeting. And normally at a school committee meeting, which they were very clearly reminded of by Mayor Flanagan, that we only allow citizens' input on matters coming before the school committee on that day's agenda. But he was willing to listen to what the people had to say. So the first thing I want to do is I want to go to the interview with former teacher Kristen Ford and listen to why she did this. So if we could have that interview, please. We're here at the Henry Lord Middle School tonight, where parents are here and they're very upset about some of the incidents going on here in the Fall River Public School system. And I have with me Kristen Ford, who's a former Fall River Public School teacher, and she's led the charge here against the Fall River Public Schools to make sure that people know what's happening in our school system. Now, Kristen, can you tell us what's happening and why you went out and did this?
The reason I went out and did this is because I still keep in contact with about 50% of my students, if not more. And a lot of them have reached out to me through email or through, just seeing me out and about. And they have mentioned their concerns about how they don't feel safe. They dread going to school and telling me the horror stories. So it was just finally the day that I wrote the letter, it was one email that came across my account, and it was from a student that had just had it. And I think that was my straw that broke the camel's back, and I just said, that's it, I'm putting it out there. You know, the vodka, the Percocets, the fighting, the bullying, and the kids are getting sick of being bullied and nothing's being done about it. They're being told their parents aren't even getting their questions answered, that if they can even reach someone, and I think the bullying is one of the biggest issues too. So
it's interesting, you mentioned, vodka and Percocet and, bullying. What do you mean by that? Where is this happening, and why hasn't it been addressed?
It's at Morton Middle School, and it is happening because of the lack of discipline they have there. If there's structure, if there's discipline, then the kids aren't going to do it. You're always going to have some kids that are, test the boundaries and stuff like that, and the limits and whatnot, but when it's just a slap on the wrist and sent back to class, they're going to keep doing it, and it's going to escalate, and it's going to escalate, and it's going to escalate until something really big happens.
This is a scary thought to me, it really is, because I know that just over the past couple of days on Facebook, I've received 3 allegations of sexual abuse and rape at various schools, one at Morton, one at the RPS, and I've also received an allegation of physical abuse of a student at the Green School. This is scary. Can these things actually be happening in our schools?
I'm sure they are, because when I was a teacher at Henry Lord, there was a lot of stuff that went on here that the public would have no idea about.
So it's kind of appropriate that you come home to...
It is. I love this place, and I always will, and that's why I'm doing this, is because of my kids.
Well, I thank you for defending our students and making sure that people know what's going on.
Thank you very much.
And I'm sure that we'll hear some more tonight in the meeting. So thank you for spending some time with us. Thank you very much. Thank you, and back to the show. Well, it was an interesting meeting, as I said. Kristen Ford finally did get an opportunity to have some input, and her speech was approximately 10 minutes long. I would have loved to have played that speech during the show, but it would eat up 1/3 of the show. But Chipper, you were there and you heard it as well, and it was very interesting. But I found it what I found very funny, and you and I talked about it during the meeting, was the oldest political play in the book. I mean, it came out of the political playbook of bringing on the positive of the school before hearing everything else. What did you think about that? I mean, we were talking about it, and I mean, some of the comments we made during the meeting we can't say on the air, but you have to admit it was kind of interesting.
Well, it is. It's the oldest political trick in the world. They bring in some people to say how wonderful everything is, and we can use our famous ostrich approach to everything that's really going on. But obviously, that was really minimized by the crowd. Some of the things that was said during that program, and what really upsets me about that was one of the initial comments made by these people, who, by the way, are on a local radio show too, trying to sell the same thing, that Morton's a wonderful place and nothing bad happens. Although yesterday they did say, well, it's not perfect. Well, it's far from perfect from what we heard yesterday. But what really bothered me was the fact that one of the individual who took the mic basically said that it's really nobody's business unless you have a child at Morton or unless you are part of the PTO. And that really is appalling. And she also used the famous, if you disagree or if you challenge anything that happens, you're being negative. If you point out something that actually happened, that's the truth, a problem that really needs addressing, a problem that could result in far worse things happening, we're being negative. Well, the fact is, I think that we're obligated to do it, and every citizen has a right to expect that every child and every teacher is safe in the school environment.
The interesting thing was, and you and I both saw how uncomfortable the mayor and many members of the school committee were getting. The mayor had thrown right back in his face the fact that over the past few weeks, the mayor has brought up on charges Mr. Colville on child endangerment charges. And the court magistrate threw them out. And the mayor and the school committee and the school department were accused of the same thing. And it was said, if you can bring up this landlord, don't you think that our children in the schools deserve the same protection? And I agree. I think that maybe this is the case here. Maybe if a few school committee members or the mayor or Meg Mayo Brown were charged with child endangerment for burying their head in the sand, maybe something would happen a little bit faster.
I think you're right, but I'm not sure if that'll ever happen, because it seems like they circle the wagons. They attempt to minimize every issue. They try to make it appear as an isolated issue. But yesterday, it was pretty evident that when they tried that, and parents got up and said that they have been attempting to get a meeting with the superintendent for 2 years, another parent for a year, and that they couldn't, that they went and filed numerous complaints and nothing was done. And there were multiple issues that were brought up. So this is not an isolated incident. It's not something that very rarely happens. And it shows that the system itself is broken. And what really was disturbing is that the teachers in the system are afraid to bring these problems because they fear for their job. And that was said at yesterday's meeting. And there is something innately wrong with this city and with this school system if the people who are on the front lines, the school teachers, are afraid to bring issues like this for the safety of themselves and their children to the principals and to the administration for fear they'll lose their job. And if they go public, they will lose their job. And that is just flat wrong.
It is. And, what are we doing when you can't bring to the school principal or the school administration significant issues such as alleged Percocet dealing in a school, alleged vodka drinking in the school, alleged crimes of rape, abuse, bullying, because something may happen. I read this morning from a parent who was at that meeting that their child was advised by their teacher not to tell any other students in the class that he got an A because he might get beaten up. Isn't it sad that our teachers are warning our children, don't tell anyone you got a good grade? because you might get beaten up. It's scary. It really is scary. And one of the things that I thought was the biggest joke, and I have a great deal of respect for Mr. Pavo, but Mr. Pavo said yesterday, did you make an attempt to contact Meg Mayo Brown? Did you make an attempt to contact the principal? And do you have specifics? We cannot go by generalities. We need specifics. Well, Mr. Pavo, when you asked for specifics and then the audience started yelling them out to you, your response was, I can't recognize you, only the chairman can. According to Robert's Rules of Order, I can't recognize you. You asked for the specifics, they were coming from the audience, yet you then turned to a procedural way to get away from listening to them. And that's okay. As I said, I have a great deal of respect for you, but lawyers are always told, don't ask for a question you don't want the answer to. Here's the situation here. Parents were offering them. We heard stories from parents last night where they had to take children out of the public school system, and they're paying thousands of dollars a year to put their kids in private schools. And what was the answer from the mayor? You shouldn't have had to do that. No, they shouldn't have had to do it, but they did. And those people pay taxes in the city. Can they get $3,000 tax abatement?
No, unfortunately they can't, and you're right. I will respectfully disagree about Mr. Pavo, because Mr. Pavo, I believe, was obligated to recognize those people, regardless of, he can waive the rules, just as the mayor did, to have these people speak. The problem was he was getting answers to questions that he didn't want the answers to. He attempted to divert and project the problem onto the people who were bringing the problems forth. He attempted to say, it's your fault for not having a meeting with Meg Mayo Brown, and Ms. Ford responded, I believe, in the appropriate way. She said, if she won't meet with the parents of the children in question, why would I think that she would meet with me? And realistically, it's not her job to do that. She did what we had to do and what she had to do, and is make this public, because it seems the only way anything gets done in this community is when these issues are brought out to the public. It is ridiculous that school committee could pretend that they don't know what's happening. And if they didn't know what's happening, shame on them.
Well, as we've always said, this city governs by crisis. So this is what it took, another crisis. And you saw how very eloquently the mayor and the school committee got themselves out of this mess. I will entertain a motion to have Meg Mayo Brown stay here on the floor during the recess and meet with every single parent here and take their name and phone number so she can return every phone call tomorrow. And he got the motion, he got the second, and every one of the school committee members present said, yay. So they got themselves out of it, and they put the buck right where it should have stopped in the first place with Meg Mayo Brown. But they got themselves out of that mess. And parents were very upset. They were extremely upset, and so would I. And, there were some other politicians there from the city council, and there were some other people there from, outside of the school system, within the school system, former school members, teachers, students. And the funny thing, the one thing that was missing was security. There was no police officers, there was no security present, which I think spoke a lot to the people that were there, because those parents kept control. And many of them were very, very emotionally upset. And they were able to keep control, and I got to give them credit for that, because there was no security, anything could have happened, but they maintained their control.
I agree. And I think I encourage everyone to look at that school committee meeting and listen to what was said, because it's important. And I think something else that was said, I believe the mayor said, if you have problems like this, you should go to the teacher, and if you don't get any results, you go to the principal, and then if you don't you see the principal, go see the superintendent. He didn't, however, say, if you don't get any results from the superintendent, come to the mayor, who is also the chairman of the school committee. It was a classic pass the buck. We placate everyone, and we'll just we'll defer this issue for a little while by saying, okay, we're going to have you all meet with Meg Mayo Brown. Well, guys, I hate to tell you this, but the horse has left the barn. the problems are real. Mr. Mayor, if you can file child endangerment charges against a landlord, why can't you deal with criminal activities and violations of the law in our school system? That's my question.
And it's a very good question. It's a very good question. And I have to commend Kristen Ford for bringing that up. And she brought up some, and the best part about her whole speech was it was all based upon factual evidence. She brought up studies from everywhere, and they all were looking around. I love it because I see the same thing in the city council meetings. They sit there, they look around, like, don't look at me. I don't want anyone looking at me. And they definitely weren't looking at us. But it's a scary proposition. And a couple of parents came forward that I had been speaking to via email and Facebook, and they went up and they spoke to some of the school committee members. And one has actually filed criminal charges on her own against her child's attacker because she felt as though the school wasn't doing anything. And I guess they've transferred that child to another school now. So let's move the crap from one location to another. But that also seems to be our solution here in Fall River to a lot of our problems. You know, we'll move it.
Well, yeah, obviously that's what they're going to do, and they're going to move. They're going to try to move all the troubled kids into one particular school, which I'm not sure is a great idea. But the other issue here is that this has become a public knowledge. Something has to be done. We can't put this off and study it and say that a meeting with Meg Mayo Brown is going to be enough. If you think about it, most of these horrific events that happened in these school massacres were really precipitated by children who were being bullied, who were being ignored, who felt that they weren't part of something. And this is a very real possibility. I mean, we have corroborative evidence, and yesterday the parents came forward. There were drugs in the school, there's alcohol in the school, there were weapons in the school. What's the next step? This has to be dealt with. And if the school committee and the superintendent and the mayor doesn't deal with this with great urgency, we have to rise again and tell them.
Yeah, and you've mentioned before on this program that a situation like this occurred in, I believe, Ohio. And is that what Fall River is going to need? Another multi-million-dollar lawsuit because they've neglected to act? I mean, they have a requirement to act. And I've told every one of the parents that have contacted me, you don't go into the belly of the beast for an investigation. Bring the investigators from outside of the belly of the beast. Because in this case, the belly of the beast doesn't investigate anything. They sit there, they just keep trying to digest the problem, or at least, vomit it up. And that creates more of a problem. It's interesting that we started talking about this before it came forward. And again, certain politicians said we don't know what we're talking about. We've been told we don't speak with factual knowledge behind us. And we spoke about that again today. And the one thing we've said straight ahead all times is that this is straight talk. If we don't know for a fact, if we hear that it's a rumor, we tell you it's a rumor. If we hear it's a whisper campaign, we say it's a whisper campaign. If we have the facts, we back it up. And we make sure we have at least 2 sources for every one of our factual comments. We back it up. Because we don't want to get into a situation where we're giving you misinformation. Because we get enough of misinformation just from City Hall and from our local press. Or we get no information from our local press. So we want you to be sure that you know that when you watch this program, what we're telling you is as factual as we can get it for you. And if it's a whisper campaign, we always say it's the whisper campaign.
It certainly is, and I think we are judicious when it comes to that. I think that when we cite something, if it's from the Herald News, we'll tell you. If we have facts, we will tell you where you can corroborate those facts. And if it's rumor, and as we all know, in this city, whisper campaigns and rumors, in a lot of cases, become facts somewhere down the road. And, but that's the oldest con in the world. You know, politicians love to say that you're an obstructionist if you don't agree with them. You're a, you know, you're negative. We are none of the above. What we are is two guys sitting here trying to disseminate the information that they won't give you, because we're not afraid of any political repercussions. We're not running for office. We're not worried about protecting some cousin's job in the school system. We're not worried about anything except what this city should be, what it can be, and giving you the best information we can give you.
That's true. Well, as we're coming to a close, it's my week for commentary, and let me tell you something. It's been an interesting week so far, and we're coming close to the end of the year, and we're looking at some significant changes so far. The end of this year, Sean Kadim will be gone. He will no longer be our city administrator. And there's multiple rumors, whisper campaigns, and statements being made from various offices and people, including the mayor. We are looking at what happened this week at the school committee and how nobody wants to deal with it, and we're going to pass the buck. We're looking at what's happening with the city council, and we're now already starting the infighting for the council presidency. And nobody wants to talk about what needs to be talked about. Nobody wants to address what needs to be addressed. And everyone says we're addressing it. Okay, we have the best of this, we have the best of that. And the bottom line is this: we have the best of nothing. You know what we have the best of in Fall River? We have the best of debt. We have the best of debt. We have the highest credit card ratings going, all right? We have more money that we owe than we know what to do with. And the school committee and the city council and the mayor don't see it, because as far as they see, it's not my money. Let's keep spending it. And they can spend it on foolish things like parks. And they can spend it on foolish things like somebody's sidewalks for their business, okay? Or better yet, they can spend it on transferring the debt to you, the property owner, the residential property owner, because the businesses need a big tax break. But you know what they don't understand about that big tax break they're giving the businesses? That means that you, the residential property owner, have to bear it. And if you bear that property tax burden, guess what? You have less money to spend at those businesses. So those businesses aren't getting much of a break, because now they get less money coming in the front door. So guess what, City Council? Guess what, Mr. Mayor? Guess what, Mr. Million over at the Chamber of Commerce? You didn't do any good for anybody. You just struck down the businesses at Fall River once again, because the taxpayer can't afford it anymore. And when we can't afford it and we have to pay it to the city, we can't afford to buy anything at our local small businesses. We can't afford to keep our small businesses in business. We can't afford to keep those businesses earning money to support their families, to pay the city taxes, even though they've been slightly taken down. I've got to give the mayor credit for one thing. He wanted to keep the tax rates at where they were. And Sean Kadim advocated for that. But you had a city councilor who came out and said, oh no, I want it at 1.5. Where that number came from, I don't know. But you see how the issues are bucked around all over the place. And there's no common sense whatsoever. You've got one committee saying, we've got this, and you've got another committee saying, we've got that. And I mean, they even met to talk about the future of the carousel. You know what the future of the carousel is? Nothing. The carousel is nothing. Ken Fiola once said it was going to bring in thousands of tourists. It brought in thousands of bills. It brought in thousands of debt. And now it's falling apart. And who's going to pay for that? You and I do, the taxpayer. Fall River is a welfare city. And I don't mean the people on the EBT cards. I mean that Fall River, the city of Fall River, is on welfare. And it will remain on welfare as long as they keep running their business into the ground. Because you know what? The city is a business, like it or not. And that's what I have to say. So this is our business. Take it for what it's worth. What do you think of that?
Well said. And that will segue me into a comment I have to make. What's innately wrong with this city? At the last election, the media endorsed a school committeeman and said he was virtually ineffective. He only seconds things occasionally. But they said it's better to have him there than somebody who was, I believe they said, a troublemaker, because a troublemaker actually might give a differing opinion. And that's something we all have to realize, that we have to get up and be truthful about this city to help it. And we don't let them stop you from doing what we have to do to cure this city because they call you negative, because they'll say, you don't have any business addressing this, because we do. You know, I love quotes, and I'm going to give you a quote from a Holocaust survivor. And this is what he said about standing by and letting things go. There may be times when we are powerless to prevent injustice, but there must never be a time when we fail to protest. We must always take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. It is our obligation as human beings and citizens to not only make this city great again, but to make sure that our children and our teachers are safe when they go to school.
Sounds so true. Sounds so true. You know, Fall River's motto has always been, we'll try. At this point, we're failing.
We voted. We're going to have, I think our new motto, CJ and I are going to try to get the picture of Alfred E. Newman with the caption, "What, me worry?" Because that seems to be the way we run our government.
It's so true. It is true. And you know, it's sad that we joke about it, but you know, you have to joke about it. Otherwise, you're going to worry yourself to tears. So, you know, and remember, we do this and we do it to keep you informed. But if you've got some information, we want to hear it. We want to know about it. You can get us on Facebook. You can get us via telephone. You can send us an email. We're always there to listen. And your identity is private. We keep our sources very private. We have many sources out there that give us information. And the only time we'll ask you to ever contact anyone else is if they really need to speak with you directly. And that option is always left to you. So remember, keep us informed so that we can keep the people informed. Fall River has the opportunity to change its course, and you have the opportunity to help. Thanks for watching. We appreciate the time, and we hope that you enjoyed this show. You have a great day.